Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast. Happy Christmas. It is the time of the year. It's weird because we are pre-recording that episode before Christmas, knowing that next week will be the episode from 1 week ago. It's all very confusing. But all you guys need to know is Happy Christmas and soon to be a Happy New Year. I think that we are all looking forward to put 3 big axes behind this year and just like leave 2020 behind us. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I don't think anyone, I mean, I'm sure, and we haven't had a bad 2020, like considering what's happened to other people, but this year as a whole has just been like, fuck, a bit of a shit show, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone is making fun of that. 2020 becomes more of a meme now.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, this wasn't the best year, but it wasn't too bad where we are then not allowed to make joke of it or jokes.
Yeah, true. It wasn't. I mean, it's been. I'm sure there's individual cases where it's been severe and really bad, but for the majority of people, it's just been a bit of a like fuck around, to put it in like a very kind word. I guess. Well, kind. I don't know if that's the right word, but
no.
Anyway. So yeah, happy Christmas. I hope everyone enjoyed some turkey, I guess. Or what do you have in Germany? Do you have turkey?
It always depends on the state. I was shocked when I first came to Berlin like 12 years ago and heard what they have for Christmas. Because when I'm not mistaken, it's sausage and potato salad. So, and that is like potato salad, you know what, with mayonnaise and stuff?
Yeah, creamy one, yeah.
Yeah. And I was shocked because I was growing up with having like a proper feast of like turkey, I don't know, some kind of vegetable with whatever, right? Potatoes as well.
Roasties, yeah.
Yeah, stuff. So a very, very big feast and not sausages and just like potato salad. And that's basically it. So I was very shocked. Cultural shock I experienced when I moved to Berlin. So it always depends on the state. But for me personally and for us at home, it's kind of like a proper feast. And I'm the one who's always taking care of that because I like to believe that I'm a good husband. Not yet, not officially, but yet now, unofficial husband, like at home, the guy who takes care of the household.
I'm only ever the sous chef. I never cook. I just chop.
Never? What are you guys doing? Like, you're always traveling to the parents over Christmas, right? You never celebrate on your own now at home?
Not yet. So last year was the first time we went to Bude, and that was the first Christmas I had away from home ever in my life. Otherwise, before, we'd always just gone to our separate families. So we don't know what we're doing this year still. We might go to Bude, but also part of us is just feeling, it's like a moral dilemma. Like I said to you yesterday on a voice note, is like the government are saying, like the rules say one thing, but they're suggesting we should do another thing. And so we're kind of like, we know they want to see us, but that might not be a long-term like good thing to be doing because the risks are just there. So somewhat considering like, I don't know, just going to like Cambridge, which is a few hours north, and like just getting a nice little Airbnb for a couple of days, and maybe if it has a hot tub, that would be pretty amazing. I think we'd be lucky to get something like that, but I'd like to get out of London.
I don't think on such a short notice, not possible.
It's pretty tough.
I mean, I told you about my dream that I always had when I was single, right? With having a dog.
Log cabin.
Exactly, right? And this is something that I always thought that I will do next year. It's always next year, isn't it? It's like I will start the diet on a Monday. And that was the same thing there as well. I always thought like, yeah, next year I'm going to book a cabin like in advance. I need to book it probably already in January, February for then the next year. And then November came around and I was way too late. And I thought like, yeah, fuck, I don't have a dog. Fuck the cabin. The cabin can wait until next year. So if you want to do something like this, I think that you really have to plan in advance.
And this year has been a particularly hard year to plan anything because they're changing the rules like left, right, and center all the time. Like we just entered tier 3, which basically means we're in like everything's locked down apart from gyms, thankfully. And then like supermarkets and essential stores. Actually, I think non-essential stores might still be open. So you can still go shopping, but you can't go to the pub or a restaurant or sit in a coffee shop or something.
What's this? I'm very curious, and sorry guys, once again, to always talk about the C thing. I think everyone is sick and tired of that, but we're sitting in different countries, right? And that's why I'm very curious, because I haven't heard anything any longer from the UK other than the first vaccine was taking place, or vaccination was taking place. And after that, it was just like quiet, at least to me, from the outside. And it seems like as if now that the first person got vaccinated, the C thing isn't actually a thing anymore in the UK. I don't know. How is it like? I mean...
So... Ada's getting arsey. Yeah. So, it's getting worse. And so that's why quite a few countries, quite a few regions have moved into another tier. So it's just like stricter rules, which then makes no sense. It's like I was saying to you, it's like you're tightening the diet, making it more and more restricted. And then you just open the floodgates for 5 days. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet. So, yeah, it actually makes no sense what they're doing. But I think they promised it so long ago, and I think it's probably a political thing where if he goes against this, he will look bad for his party, and that's why he can't really go back on it. So that's why it's like we're not changing the rules, but we do change our advice. So listen to our advice. But so it's kind of frustrating, and I think the rest of Europe, or at least it seems like you guys are doing actually a smarter thing where you've gone into a more restrictive actual lockdown to actually do
but
something.
It was very much necessary because the situation is at its worst. It's much worse than the first lockdown. Many hospitals are actually saying that they are at full capacity, and that some of them have to start triaging, so actually turning people down or deciding which of the patients will get some support, and some of them don't, which is crazy, right? And also just like the cases overall, they have been going up like constantly, and the death cases have now been going up as well. So it was very much needed and necessary. And it's crazy because it's very similar to how it is in in the UK, because now everything has been shut down effectively from last Wednesday. Thing is though, that from the announcement up until the lockdown, 3 days still passed where people could go out and do Christmas shopping and stuff like that. And the cities were flooded with people.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, come on. Let's spread it one last time and then lock down. Come on.
This is a lot of them. And I guess we have quite a lot of US followers, and I think they saw quite a resurgence after Thanksgiving. And it's going to be worse than that, what's going to happen for us over Christmas.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking forward to that. I'm not looking forward to probably a potential lockdown in January. But at least every lockdown now, I kind of feel I'm a lot more prepared, just because I've kind of got.
And not only that, it feels like we are, and it could be a strategy as well of like, okay, we got now the vaccine, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and this gives hope to the people, right? And I think that they are then much more easy to forgive certain decisions of like, yeah, I don't find it cool, but come on, soon everyone will be vaccinated, yada, 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 right? And I think that because of the light of the end of the tunnel, it's just like, yeah, all right, it's a lockdown, but hopefully the last one we will ever see in our lifetime.
Yeah, let's hope so. I can't, man, it's just it's so weird. Like if we just took back like went a year, like last year, just looking at how things were and even the start of everything, like it's so normal now. Like thinking training from home is such a like weird thing to do, but yeah, you've now got like a pretty legit home gym set up and everything. Somewhat, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it still sucks though, training from at home with the things that I have, especially because right now I have somewhat of an issue in my shoulder. I don't think that it stems from the shoulder though, because more and more at times I have the feeling that it really stems from the back side of my traps, but still here on the top side, right? But further behind. And yeah, just bothering me right now. I can't really do any kind of banded flies or dumbbell flies, stuff like that. With also pressing movements, I have to be careful. And machines are such a good way for working around injuries as well. And free weights, you're kind of limited then what you're capable in doing. And it just sucks, but at the same time, everything that sucks for us is like complaining on a pretty high level.
Yeah, it is. I guess but it still sucks. It never leaves that it doesn't suck. And I hope, because I know, I was trying to work out where you are with things at the moment. You're still slightly in a gaining phase, but I know you're excited to prep. And so when is that starting officially? Is it like 1st of January?
No, not exactly. It's actually happening right after Christmas when I'm starting my new mesocycle. So I just finished my last session. Oh, falling down. Last session of this mesocycle now, going into the deload. And then after the deload, it's go time. And I'm very, very pumped, very, very excited to get started because I've never looked that good at that body weight. And at the same time, I'm feeling ready.
I think that's, like we were saying, you said it yesterday, that's the ultimate goal, look better at higher body weights.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate, because actually I have a post kind of thinking about doing in terms of how to assess you've grown muscle. But once you're advanced, so many of the things that you hope to use don't become very useful. So even performance, a lot of people like to use, but then big compound lifts, they can be kind of not the best because there can be skill improvements on those lifts. And then also, I think this is particularly evident maybe for our audience, but my muscle connection's improved, my form and technique has actually improved on those movements. So it's hard to track performance on them because maybe actually the only thing that's improved is just how I guess if I'm doing 100 for 10 and 100 for 10 now, but my muscle connection and technique's better, then sure, maybe I've grown some muscle there, but it's not a guaranteed thing. And then maybe more so on isolation movements. But I think the truest way is when you're a bigger body weight and you look more conditioned, you've grown muscle. Yeah. There's just nothing else that it could be. So that's exciting. How much are you weighing now?
Around 90 kilograms, actually. And I've never looked that way before. Honestly, this is great. Normally at 90 kilograms, you couldn't even tell that I'm lifting any longer because I was just like a blob.
That's awesome.
And now there's details still here and there. Of course, it's not super sharp. So my upper body has never been sharp, right? But still, it's looking good. I'm not feeling like I did in the past when I was kind of around 90 kilograms. It could look better. That's always the case, though. But yeah, it's great. And it's like you said in the past so often, experience cures anxiety. Yeah. And this is exactly falling back to what you just said about trying to get some indicators of where the journey takes you. And I know from my own experience that in the past, I was hyper focused on things that don't really matter that much. And I wasn't able to interpret the data correctly. So when it comes to, for example, taking some pictures, you take some pictures, you are in a gaining phase, and you start to look actually worse. And you think that you can tell of whether you've gained muscle or not. But in reality, in a gaining phase, most likely you can't just from looking at the pictures, right? Let's just say you had a 6-month gaining phase and you're taking a look at the pictures and now you look softer, yeah, and bigger as well. But if someone were to tell me yeah, you've gained muscle here, muscle there, sorry, most of the time those people may not know it better, but they are full of shit. Or once again, they simply don't know it, but they think they actually know that you've really gained muscle there. But most of the time, it's just fat and also water tissue, simply because they take up so much more space than muscle mass does. We need to acknowledge that and recognize that as a natural athlete, we are speaking about millimeters of a change. But you can't really detect that with a naked eye. So the only thing why I'm taking pictures is twofold, and that in a gaining phase is twofold. For accountability reasons, to see and double check whether things aren't getting out of hand and we are heading into the right direction, and secondarily for future reference, so that in the future you can look back at the same body weight, at the same circumstances. So you are in a gaining phase, weighing the same, but 1 year from now or so that you then can compare yourself, because only then you're truly able to then say that you've gained some muscle mass here and there, because the circumstances are the same.
Yeah, it's so well said, because I think a lot of people don't think of that way of tracking it, but unfortunately, you're going to be gaining, probably once you're relatively well trained, more fat than muscle in a gaining phase. Yeah. So every time you take photos, you're probably just looking, bigger, but probably softer and softer, potentially worse and worse. But in comparison to maybe a previous gaining phase, like a year ago, where you're the same body weight, that's where you can compare. That's where that value comes in. And then, like you said, just keep yourself accountable to not gaining too much fat too quickly, because it can be helpful to see that happening as well. So I just did a Google of multiplying your weight in kilos to see what it was in pounds. So you're almost 200 pounds now. So that's big.
Oh, yeah.
That's exciting.
Can be.
So you're about 10 pounds heavier than I am. So but I know
makes sense that I'm also starting then earlier the prep.
100%. And you're just, from at least like the perspective I've seen, you're in a much better position than even last time. And you were in a good position last time, but this puts you way ahead of schedule. And I'm excited to follow that journey, actually. I think someone was asking me, like, why do I bodybuild now? And in the beginning, the reason I competed was like, I wanted to prove to myself that I was fully recovered from my previous accident. And it was like, if I can do this, I can do anything. So it was very much like a confidence thing. Whereas now I compete because I actually just love that journey and sharing it with other people. Like people are so excited to follow along the journey. Like, I'm really excited to see you get to levels of condition you've never seen on your physique before. And I'm just excited to see that. And that's what I love about it. I'm not so concerned about where I'm going to place and all of these things, because, I mean, if I was someone who was ultra competitive, I'd been to finals and been in the top 3 already, maybe that would be more on my mind. But I'm really just excited about seeing the journey. And next year is going to be crazy. I've already, people who I've seen who are saying they're competing, I'm like, okay, the world's competing now. Everyone's going in. I think Alberto Nunez said he might be next year.
Oh, really?
Even. Yeah.
But he's a good example as well, right? He got out of that comfort zone of staying always on the leaner side of things. And I've just seen a picture yesterday where I was like, this is looking great. But
you're like the same body weight.
Yeah, there could be, but he's looking much more muscular than I am, unfortunately. But yeah, these are the pictures that you normally don't share on Instagram because they aren't deemed Instagram worthy any longer, right? And that then, once again, we've talked about it so often in the past, creates a false impression to people that they always have to be lean, always have to be staying shredded year round, that everyone who's successful is doing that, that even when they are gaining, they are looking like that. And that's not the reality. And I found it very, very cool to see that he actually posted that picture. And once again, to fall back to just experience cues and anxiety, because first and foremost, interpreting the data and also then shifting the focus on the things that do matter. I think that this is something that perhaps everyone goes through, what the vast majority of people goes through when it comes to, okay, what is really important? And they have to figure out for themselves, even when they are having someone by their side who's giving them useful information. Sometimes people just have to do certain mistakes because the mistakes teach them the biggest lessons. This is the same thing here. I am as confident as I've never been in my life. And I know that I'm not at a body weight which I would have deemed nice to be at just a couple of years back. Just a couple of years back, I would have probably been very, very, very afraid of getting to that body weight and just looking the way I look right now. Because it is soft in certain spots, right? But for me personally, I came to the realization that pushing it to this body weight, this is also where I feel comfortable, right? Just from a physiological perspective. Yeah. Maybe not from the psychological perspective, but sometimes these two don't match.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's incredibly well said, because I always say it, too often people are focused on special nutrient timing or all these other little detail supplementation. It's just get to a point where your training is the best it's ever been, because training is literally, if you don't have training going well, you ain't growing muscle. Like that's the match that lights the fire for muscle gain. If you don't have that match, you ain't growing any muscle there. So that is so important. And it's, I think someone like myself, I hold body fat relatively evenly across my body, and I feel generally better a bit kind of, I think my psychology and physiology probably align quite closely in that I'm fortunate that I look relatively lean and can perform really well. And once I start getting a bit softer, I also really start feeling crummy. So like I'm fortunate in that sense, but now you've had experience and more experience, like you're getting to that point where it's like, I know like this is where I do my good work, but I can get out of here and I can get really lean. And that's where like, I'm not growing muscle now, I'm getting ready for stage. And that's where I need to focus on the look now and not the performance. So it's just getting that mindset.
On that note, I just want to add that this is probably the highest I feel comfortable at. Pushing further is also something that where I would feel probably the negative effects. I'm already feeling it now. I need to incorporate more and more palatable food in order to actually get onto my calories. Potato. No potatoes, like honestly not. I'm even at a point where I'm just like, because I'm normally eating the same things each and every single day, where I'm sick and tired of eating the same things each and every single day.
Right.
And this is hardly ever the fact. This is where I know
fast, efficient fat loss. Does that sound like music to your ears? The mini cut movement might just be for you. Mini cuts are like robbing the fat bank. You want to get in and out with as much fat as possible. In a short period of time, you could easily look to lose 6 to 12 pounds of fat. The mini cut movement is excellent. There's group support for extra accountability and also expert help within the group. We have educational videos to keep you on track along the way, and you get all your nutrition and training customized and individualized for you. So if that sounds of interest, get involved with the mini cut movement.
Holy shit, I'm kind of getting tired of food, and it would be easy because there are people out there who are saying like, I've never experienced that, and I was the same. However, probably you've never pushed it to a body weight that is uncomfortable, or you are just still consuming too many palatable things, and then it's easy. Then it's super easy to consume lots of calories and actually get to a very high body fat percentage and also body weight. But I'm not just interested in increasing my body weight, but I also want to make it come from relatively good food sources still. Sure, the higher you go with the calories. So, for example, someone like you who needs to push up to 4,000 calories, or some other people, of course, it would then make sense to incorporate more and more palatable things. But I'm at a point where I'm just like, I'm already eating palatable stuff. I don't want to push it even higher. And at the same time, I'm already like, kind of getting tired of food. And this is like this has been my most productive off season so far. And I was starting from around 75 kilograms at my lowest, but it was of course quickly shooting up because I'm someone who's losing very rapidly because I tend to hold on to a lot of water. So I'm losing rapidly in the first initial weeks, and then I'm regaining that lost tissue once again when I'm coming out of a caloric deficit. So I think that when I ended the cutting phase at around 75, I immediately shot up to somewhere 79 kilograms or so. So,
right.
Yeah,
it's I guess, then when you start dieting, you're going to like a ton of water weight's just going to come straight off, which is also good to know because some people I kind of call it that mass bloat. And so that can hurt you psychologically sometimes, where you think you look softer than you really are because there's just that much water retention going on. Yeah. And actually you're leaner than what you are physically looking like. And even just dropping to maintenance, you can get that kind of shift.
Yeah. And I know that when I'm now switching into a caloric deficit once again, the first month will already reveal so much again because the water is then dissipating. And just to give a little bit of context for the people who haven't been around since like March or so, or who now ask themselves, okay, how much have you gained and how long have you been in a gaining phase for? So I was in a gaining phase for now since around March. So I kind of reversed out of the cutting phase because I was unsure of what to do with a slight surplus, or more so around maintenance. And then I started to gain, and I would say effectively around 6 to 7 months of pure gaining phase. So you can do the math then when it comes to like having gained around, I would say also there effectively from tissue perspective without with taking out the water component to it, around 10 kilograms or so.
Yeah. That's really cool. I'm trying to think where I was. So I was down at 180 pounds and now I'm up at almost 190, but I've done that cycle like twice almost. So I didn't gain quite as much as you, but that was just my differing strategy. I guess I dropped in that mini cut, which we've discussed before, not things that you enjoy as much, or rather that you just don't respond to them as well as what I do there. And I'm still like, you question your methodology. Like I'm looking at myself and I'm like, oh, am I starting to get too soft? Have I really got two more gaining phases under my belt? But we'll see. I can always kind of drop one of those gaining phases to maintenance. I can always start the diet sooner if I need to. So I'm going to do some, like I said to you, I'm going to do some proper full body, not like pumped up in the gym, downlighting kind of assessments and see where I'm at. Not that I'm certainly doing another gaining phase. That's definitely on the cards. But I'm pretty certain this is the best I'm going to look when I hit 190 pounds. I think that would be the best.
I'm very excited to see what it will look like when you're shredded, because it will be completely different to 2017. Just to go back to what we said about physique pictures one more time, I always find it funny that some of the people then, they take a picture in the off season and it's only 4 weeks have passed and be like, yeah, oh, look at that, I made amazing progress. And these are just like two different pictures and different lightings, maybe different angles. And it's just like, not really. You're just like in a different scenario now. And you are also a natural athlete. So when you are enhanced, sure, absolutely. 4 weeks can be quite a long time to see significant changes. And we've seen it with crazy people out there, right? But you're a natural athlete. All you've done is put yourself in a different lighting, and you just don't know it better. Because I also know that when I'm in that one single gym where I was training for like 6 to 7 years, and I'm not regularly going there anymore, but it has amazing lighting. And when I go back there, every now and then, I'm just like, wow, holy shit, you just look like you've put on 5 to 10 pounds of pure muscle mass, right? And this is what is happening. And I find it funny because these individuals are most of the time then also personal trainers.
It's true. It shocks me. It's crazy what lighting can do, because I remember I was like about 180 pounds and I was in like I'd just gone into like a primer phase, so I was maintaining, and I went to do the posing practice with Andrew Chappelle and Steph Noble, and they had the posing studio and everything. It had like incredible down lighting, like this is like stage worthy lighting, and I started posing and I was like, fuck, like I'm that lean. I just hadn't even, like, I was just ignorant to it because I don't know, the lighting I'd been using at home or whatever, especially when I'd been doing my setup, like with the ring light and no down lighting, I looked like that. It was almost so honest, I couldn't really see how I was looking. And because I always think I'm not as lean as I should be, and everyone has their own perception of themselves, I think generally, or at least once they've competed or have got really lean, you always think you're a bit fatter than you should be. I was just like, my mind was like blown. I was like, okay, I'm actually getting really quite lean here. So it's crazy what lighting can do. But you bring up the great point of like, you need consistency with these photos. If you're comparing completely different angles, different photos, like it's just not a helpful like gauge of progress there. And in 4 weeks, let alone 4 months, like you're not going to have like made huge amounts of progress in that time as a natural, relatively well advanced trainee. So you're just going to look fuller.
Totally. And you are confusing muscle mass with fat mass.
And good angles in photography. I think of the joke like like I could say, like, I haven't actually improved. It's just lighting in gyms has got better. My camera angles and my camera has got better on my iPhone, and the filters are better. Although I try not to filter things because I think I'm just deceiving myself if I do that. But I think in general, like maybe people haven't got better, just photography's got so much better.
No, absolutely. Yeah, cool. Let's move over to questions.
I only wanted to bring up the one point was, this is the perfect place to start a contest prep where you are, where you're just sick of eating, basically. Because now, how easy is it going to be? You're going to be actually going into a cut is not only exciting from a fat loss perspective and progress perspective, it's actually going to be a relief. And you'll probably even feel better in the gym for at least like the first few weeks, maybe even months, where you just feel lighter on your feet and things like that. So
just looking forward to once again see the veins. Already missing the veins. When you have them, it's like, boy, no. Let me just eat a little bit more. And now they're gone. It's like, it's like a love-hate relationship.
I'm excited just for like trying different things, learning the process again. Like it always helps.
And the tour, the Revive Stronger tour through Europe.
Especially imagine if we compete, like, I don't know, we flew out to like the US and competed with Alberto or something. Imagine that. That'd be fucking cool.
That would be great.
Some other, like, we could do some collabs.
Yeah. I mean, it's all possible. So guys, reach out to us if you want to compete with us.
No cool. Heavyweights. You're just too big.
Yeah, I'm probably bantam after all. Shall we get to questions?
Sure thing.
So, our supporter, Andrew...
The Potter? Check.
No, it's White.
Oh.
Sorry for that. I can't see a question
Andrew
from
White
Andrew.
actually has replaced Andrew Pottercheck, I think.
Perhaps, yeah. Sorry, Andrew. Supporter, do you think it's possible that P ratios are more individually dependent than we might currently think? For example, do natural leaner guys build more muscle while lean? And do naturally thicker guys build more muscle while carrying a slightly higher body fat percentage? Or are we confident that being in that 8 to 15% range is non-negotiable, better for optimal nutrient partitioning?
So I love this question because I think people can miss the forest for the trees with P ratios, and it comes back to what we were talking about earlier. And I don't care if Pascal's P ratio is meant to be superior when he's leaner. If he doesn't feel good and isn't training and performing well in the gym, doesn't mean jack shit. So I think potentially the leaner you get, your P ratio is meant to improve. But stage condition, I ain't performing well when I'm 5% body fat. I'm sorry. Anything under 10%, I'm not performing as well as I could do. So even if on paper the P ratio is outweighed by having more body fat to perform better in the gym. So I would focus less on P ratios and focus more on how you're performing in the gym. I think there probably is a genetic component there where some maybe they respond better being leaner and other people less so. But I wouldn't focus so much on the P ratio there, at least. That would be my very short thought of an answer.
Yeah, I don't have that much to say either because honestly, I don't know. That's the thing. I have, of course, my biases. I think it's overrated probably, but I could improve it. I can only say and point fingers towards people who have been on the fatter side of things and still carry a lot of muscle mass. We know it all also from highly obese people that they are also carrying a lot of muscle mass underneath it all most of the time.
Calves,
yeah, only the calves. And so we have a lot of anecdotal evidence of people still gaining a lot of muscle mass with a high body fat percentage. And then we have bodybuilders who get huge and massive while always staying on the leaner side of things. And honestly, I don't know what's better. And I think that because I don't know, and because there's even conflicting evidence, scientifically speaking, from a scientific evidence perspective, yeah, P ratio is a thing. From anecdotal perspective, is kind of conflicting to then the studies that we have, because there are plenty of people who are fat and have been gaining plenty of muscle mass, getting huge, and I would even say some people probably outshine the muscle mass tissue by a long shot when it comes to the people who stayed on the leaner side of things. So I don't know, and because I don't know, I don't really look at it, because you're just spinning your wheels. It will drive you crazy if you really think about it too often, too long, because you're always presented with evidence here, evidence there, and it doesn't lead you anywhere.
Yeah, I think also one other thing that makes me think of it is your P ratio could be in a really good place. And I wonder if that could be in a good place, but your ultimate hormones like testosterone, because you're so lean, maybe you aren't has higher testosterone, and testosterone is probably, and I won't say probably, is most definitely more powerful to anabolism than a P ratio would be. So I think the answer there is always just train at a body fat where you feel your best and stay within that zone for as long as you can.
Yeah. Also, one more thing, not just to the hormonal environment. I think it always then also depends on your environment in general. Are you stressed? Are you sleeping well? And I think that this is why studies like this can always have its downsides or limitations, because who is saying that those individuals who had a better P ratio weren't the ones sleeping more, sleeping better, having a better recovery overall than the ones who didn't? Because it's the same flaws that we are seeing with vegetarians who are then claiming that it's healthier and then claiming that studies have shown that. Many studies, due to the population who is then very conscious about their food decisions, they are tending to be also vegetarians. They are conscious about the choices. They're conscious about their own body, their self-perception, their self-image, etc., right? And the ones who are then non-vegetarians are the ones sedentary, smoking, drinking, eating just like they want to, right? And there's a huge discrepancy. It's a discrepancy in the lifestyle that then leads to those detrimental health outcomes or outcomes in the health. And who's to say that it's not the same there as well? Those who are fatter make poorer generally speaking, in the studies, the participants, those who have been on the high side of the body fat percentage have made some poorer choices overall, right? Sleeping worse, whatever, right? Are in a worse situation overall than those who have been leaner just in these studies, right? Which then can screw the data, of course, in favor of then the P ratio being favorable when you're leaner and stuff. So I think that there goes so much into that. And it's the same thing that people shouldn't be stressing about when it comes to just like training principles. These, and I know it sounds awful because we are in the same realm, but the science nerds, the keyboard warriors, they think and concern themselves with things that aren't really important to them. This is why many bros see results and many of the science guys don't. Point blank. Sorry to say it that way, but it is the overthinking of things. The not going in there and training hard. And I don't want to be that bro who's just like, yeah, train hard, eat big, yada, yada, yada. We know that this is not what I'm referring to. But still, we need to tick off those principles first. Quality in regards to the execution of lifting techniques and also bringing then the intensity. And couple that with proper nutrition, proper sleep and recovery management, and then you will probably grow. And all of the other things are kind of very, very far in the back.
I can only agree. It's just one of those things, again, like missing the forest for the trees. When you're focusing too hard on this P ratio, it's like, it's so easy to nerd out on all these things, but like learn enough and then put it into practice. And once you're in a position where the minutia matters, where that's really when you're very advanced and you've got all the other things dialed in, that's when you can concern yourself a little bit more with these things. I have it all the time. I was just going to say, I have it frequently with clients where they don't think they're lean enough to mass, and I'm like, you don't need to be a certain body fat to mass. Yeah. We can mass at any body fat right now. If you're comfortable with massing at a slow rate, we can do that for a few months, and you can then lose fat really, really quickly. It upsets me to see that people are like, I have to be 10% to mass. I'm like, you don't. You're gonna, if you're fighting so hard to get down to 10%, you're wasting just years potentially where you could have been gaining and enjoying eating plenty.
Yeah. And once again, this falls back to what we said in the beginning about experience cures anxiety. And I know what I'm talking about because I've been there myself. I was always looking for the answer to all of my problems. And thus, I was curious and digging into the topics, the research, and trying to follow some people who had the answers and stuff, up until the point where I still saw no progress. And then I had to revisit of what it is that I'm doing and actually just like reevaluate my overall training. And this is where I just discovered, I didn't tick off the most fundamental things. And that is being concentrated in the training sessions, having proper execution, and really training, practicing, and repeating that on a continuous basis. And once again, coupling that with proper nutrition, and not just like, if it fits in macros, that will do the job because XYZ is doing that and sees tremendous results. This is confirmation bias. You're only seeing like one person who's able to pull that off and getting away with that, right? And by that, you are then thinking, oh, this also applies to me because here's the proof, right? And in reality, you have to just come back to the realization that the most fundamental pieces need to be ticked off, and everyone is now nodding in their heads. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. But are you really doing it? And I don't want to be an asshole now, but this is a good question that you can always ask yourself, right? Because I thought myself, I'm always doing that. Because it's a common thing being thrown around. Like, yeah, the fundamental pieces need to be in check and in place first. And everyone was like, that's correct. Yep, absolutely in agreement. And the vast majority of people are still not doing that. And I know what I'm talking about because I was there myself.
Well said. I don't think I have anything to add to that.
Cool. Sorry, guys. Don't want to be
office soapbox
arsehole. And I just want people to succeed and avoid making the same mistakes as I have in the past. And it took me years in actually getting there. And I just want people to save that time. And I hope that people appreciate that instead of feeling offended by these kind of things. Anyway, over to Joseph Kaufmann, or Kaufmann, as on German. So it's Joseph. I don't know if you are aware, but probably you are aware of what Kaufmann actually means on German. It's a salesperson, someone who's in a grocery market selling things. Anyway, why does body weight fluctuate so much during prima phases? I'm eating maintenance calories and same foods and water and same steps, yet weight goes up and down by 2 pounds. I'm someone who very consistently gains and loses when massing cutting. I weigh myself on the same conditions. Maybe because maintenance is a range and I'm hovering above and below, but is that bad for my body to be constantly tricking it? Thanks.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
So that's an interesting phrase to say, tricking it. I'm not sure what he means by that, but maintenance, I think people get a little bit confused and they think maintenance means like the body weight must stay stable every day. And it doesn't mean that. It's like it's pretty much in a range and you're going to maintain within a range. So I always think if someone's coming like out of a mass into a maintenance phase, it's quite possible they're going to lose 1% of their body weight. If someone's coming out of a cut into a kind of maintenance phase, it might be up to 1% they gain. Could be more than that for someone like yourself, Pascal, and you learn that from experience, and then you'll probably hover around there. And so the first week or two, there might be some water shifts and the scale might be a bit up and down, and then it will probably stabilize. But normally we're doing a maintenance phase for such a short period of time that like you're not really trying to maintain any specific weight. It's just so long as you're 1 to 2% within the range of where you kind of started, you're probably fine, because by the time all the water shifts have worked themselves out, like now, and you're going to enter the next kind of fat loss or muscle gain phase. So I would just be confident that you roughly know that when you're coming into it from a fat loss phase, you'll probably find your maintenance could shift up a little bit. So you could start a bit lower and then kind of eat a little bit more. But again, you need to know yourself and know what you can handle. And then, I mean, the same could be said out of a mass. Like your maintenance will be up here and then it will probably trickle down. It's such a short time, there's probably not a huge amount of metabolic adaptation going on. So I would say focus less on the scale. Just be sure that you're in and around maintenance. You're doing what you need to be doing. It doesn't need to be spot on.
I can only second what you've said there in regards that it's a range. We can only do our very best in guessing what our maintenance is, because we will experience daily fluctuations based on our activity levels. Our entire system is a fluctuating system, right? Everything. everything inside of us, everything that we do is fluctuating. What you do on a daily basis will always be different to the day before. Even if you think that you have like the same day each and every single day, like, okay, I'm walking during that time, I'm eating during that time, you are still not seeing the same energy expenditure overall, right? There are always so many moving targets at the same time that takes place that it's a lost cause in trying to find like 0 changes in scale weight on a weekly basis. And I also don't think that this is what you're referring to or this is your aim after all. But all we can do is like aim for somewhere where we think maintenance is, make some adjustments based off of that. When we're then moving up and down on a weekly basis or daily basis from that middle ground or middle point, then we are absolutely fine. If the weight is then creeping upwards by like, let's say, I don't know, 100 grams per week, this is so marginal that it could, of course, be that you're gaining in a slight surplus, but it could also be from a random chance perspective that on a weekly basis, on average, you are now gaining, but this is not due to fat tissue or muscle tissue, but something else, right? The same for the other way around. That's why, once again, I think that it is a range, and as long as you're somewhat in that range of like, I don't know, for you it may be plus minus 2.5 pounds or so.
Yeah.
When you're hovering around there, perfect. If you then, on a more regular basis, weighing in behind those ranges, then you can make a case and argument for, okay, am I gaining or losing weight slowly? And just to, I know it's kind of perhaps lost for a couple of people, but when it comes to trading, so trading the stock market, you have always support and resistance. But this is not just like, okay, at $1 point, it's support or resistance. No, it's always a range, like plus minus perhaps 5 cents or so. When it's all of a sudden, most of the time, then moving up and up and up, you could make a case that this trend is stronger towards one direction or the other. And this is the same here.
Yeah, completely. And the only thing I'd add to this is, I'd be interested to hear what you think, Pascal, but having worked with like a handful of people who have been relatively overweight before, when they go into a maintenance phase, it's much harder for them to actually maintain, and they just seem to, I mean, I've never done it for a long, long period of time. I'm sure there'd be a plateau at some point, but they just seem to keep gaining, even though you're like, they're being on point with their calories, they haven't changed their activity loads, and they're eating like definitely not in a surplus that you'd expect for the gain of weight. And I can only imagine there's a lot of like we've talked about before, like fluid being stored and things like this, unless I'm just like being too confident in my clients being very confident that they're actually being accurate and precise and adhering like they say they are. Because I know that's also a thing where like oftentimes people don't realize they're actually eating more than they say they are. I don't know if you have any experience with that.
Yeah, I've seen that definitely. And also just the fluctuation range seems to be bigger with people who have been heavier in the past. And also for female athletes, I've seen that it can be that there's more of a pattern going on a monthly basis. Yeah. So I have one athlete where it was in the first, I think 5 months, we've seen the same pattern happening each and every single month. First week of the month was always like a decent increase in scale weight reading on average. Second week was a massive spike of around 2 pounds. And then week number 3, it came down. And week 4, it came down significantly. Right? And this pattern continued for 5 months straight. Right? And it was so important that we are then collecting data. And this is always what I'm saying to my athletes as well. I am collecting data because the data doesn't lie. It tells a story. Of course, at times, one of the data points tells you more about the situation than others. That's where the coach then needs to come into play to make sense of the data that is being collected and actually categorize or prioritize the data that you are then interpreting. When it comes to then the scale weight or other things, it's always up for the individual, of course, to plug that in as accurately as possible and to do the very best in just measuring that as well. So when you're an athlete and last night I had a late night meal, lots of sodium, and then you only slept like 5 hours, you get up very early in the morning and you step on the scale. Of course, the data will be quite different to what you're normally seeing on other days where you may be sleeping in long. The last dinner is at 5 already, right? And then it is always a game between then the coach and the client as well. But they need to either work together or work against each other. And this is where it's then so important that the client is doing what they are supposed to be doing in putting in the data as best as they can under the same circumstances to make it easier for the coach to make sense of the data. And sometimes the scale is simply not a good tool to interpret of what is truly going on. But because of that, you are also then tracking other data points as well. Mm-hmm. No one single data point is the be-all, end-all. And that's why I think, of course, every single coach has their own methodologies. And that is absolutely all right. Some people can get to Rome in a car, some with train, some with a motorbike or so, some with a bicycle, right? But of course, getting there is then very important. And for me personally, I like to collect many data points because if one fails, we can fall back to other data points. And if the vast majority of data points tell me one story, but one of them doesn't, right, then I truly believe the other data points then, or the vast majority of data points.
Yes, it's so well said and so important, especially for females with the scale, having that long-term data and having other data points like how do things fit, how do I look, how are my measurements going, because then you get like triangulation when all things are pointing in the same direction. Like you can be super confident that you're moving in that direction, or if the majority are. So yeah, super well said. And I'm glad your experience is somewhat similar to my own as well. And like you said, there's no point lying to your coach. Like honesty is always the best policy because they can't make the right calls otherwise. And you could just completely crash and burn or completely go in the wrong direction. And yeah, I'd hate to think that any of my clients ever lied to me. I'm sure some of them have at some point, like put in a different number or just not told me about something. But hopefully most of them are quite truthful.
Yeah, in the end, when you do this, you're basically just lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Because I see the coach as an objective extension of yourself. Right? The things that you can't do for yourself, the coach should be doing. Staying objective, staying rational, making the right decisions for you. Right? And if you then lie to him, it's basically lying to yourself. Because then he will make some adjustments and decisions that don't really need to be done in that situation.
Well said.
Cool. Let's move over to the next question from AD. So, she? I think it's a she, right? No, wait a sec. I need to check the profile. Sorry, AD. Oh,
it's a married couple,
it's a male. It's a male. Oh, sorry, AD. I thought that it's a female name. I'm from Germany, so all we know is like Franziska, Jessica, whatever there is, Hannah, stuff like that. Never heard Heidi. So that's my excuse. Sorry for that. Deeply sorry. How much evidence is there to support the use of metabolite measures, and are there specific guidelines for how to design them? Also, are there any guidelines you're aware of on the intake of processed meats, and or if there's a specific upper limit you guys anecdotally use for yourself, your clients? Thanks.
Cool. So with metabolite work, is there any evidence to support it? I would say yes. There's quite a bit of evidence. It's not the prime driver for hypertrophy, and some might even argue that it's not even a driver, it's just part of a consequence of mechanical tension. I'm not sure I agree with that. Metabolite work, yeah, I mean, it's all the way back to Brad's initial paper and like the the pathways to hypertrophy, and he's also updated that, but it's part of like cell swelling. And I think the theory is along the lines of, think of a muscle cell like a balloon, and you're filling it up with like blood and metabolites and all these different aspects that come with metabolite training. and it's to bursting. And so before it bursts, it reinforces itself. So it has to get like bigger. I think that's the concept behind it, and the thought behind cell swelling. And there's like BFR training, and there's papers coming out about that, which seem to give support towards cell swelling. But I think if anyone was to hang their hat on it and say, this is like the thing I'm going to do all the time, I think unfortunately they're probably missing the forest for the trees again, and they should be primarily focusing on mechanical tension. In terms of setting up kind of programming for it, Brad's book, actually, I've forgotten what is it called? His book on training, not his hypertrophy like textbook, but he's actually got a book, which is, I've forgotten the name of it. I've got it, but I've forgotten the name, where he has a programming kind of, his programming in there, and he does have like metabolite block. I'm not sure he would still agree that that's the best way to do it, and that's not how I would now do it. We tend to keep mechanical tension as like the core of the program and have that hypertrophic kind of foundation there, and then we layer on top like some metabolite work at maybe the end of the session or the end of the kind of for that muscle group. So it's never the prime focus of a mesocycle, but it becomes more of a focus towards the end when we're like, we've been training with high volumes for a long time. The person's pretty fatigued. They're not getting that great pump disruption. So it's like, let's use our like short-term tool of kind of hypertrophy and put that on top. And that's always guaranteeing good pumps, novelty, to create that extra bit of stimulus towards the end. So that's how at least we tend to program it in a kind of very non-nuanced nutshell. I don't know if you want to talk about that before we go on to the processed meat thing.
Yeah, just from an anecdotal perspective then, it's always fun though. Like honestly,
yes.
in a gaining phase, if you have been doing like, let's say 3 normal hypertrophy mesocycles, switching things up just a little bit, having some of the intensity techniques in there, rest pauses, Mara reps, I don't know, supersets, giant sets, stuff like that. It's freaking fun at first, and then it sucks later down in the mesocycle, because this is also something what I hammer home with every one of my athletes when they are entering a metabolite block. At first, it's fun. Later down, it's freaking hard. And it's so hard that you need to stay super concentrated and super focused, because the body just screams and shouts at you when you're doing something like, I don't know, you're in the 4th week, fatigue is already super high, and you were supposed to do something like a hack squat, 2 walking lunges in a superset for then the 4th week in a row. And now you're supposed to do like 3 sets of both, for example, and the legs are already killing you. And now pushing to something like 0 RER on each and every one of those sets, when the legs are already after the first set of the hack squats with pushing to 0 RER, immediately going over to the walking lunges, they are shouting at you, right? And pushing to that point of again 0 RER is mentally so challenging, so challenging. And if you don't go there, you're basically just repeating what you've been doing in the first week, because the body wants you to stay away from that 0 area, and you really have to push yourself. So it's fun at first, and then it sucks like later down the line, but it's very cool to have like a change of pace, using different styles. Also, it just feels good. It's like I always like to say, like, remember what Arnold said in Pumping Iron. Just remember what he said there. And this is what you're then going through with the entirety of the mesocycle as well. Good change of pace, makes fun then to train again. Stuff like that always falls there in, is a benefit to doing metabolite training as well, I think. It's not just from a perhaps physiological perspective or, I don't know, exercise science perspective, but also, of course, what you enjoy and what is fun and the way it makes you feel and stuff like that. And it is a little bit of a change of pace. Maybe it is novel enough of a stimulus to then go back to something else and create a little bit of a novel stimulus then once again. So, and I think from an anecdotal perspective and from a non-exercise science perspective, it also makes sense to every now and then incorporate these.
Yeah, and I think only to add in addition to that, like reasons to do it outside of metabolites would be, well, you're still doing hard sets, which are within a percentage of 1 rep max that are contributing towards hypertrophy. And it potentially is an easier way to get in volume, like it's less fatiguing in terms of on the joints and connective tissue. So it can give those things a break. So I think, yeah, there's there's other reasons to do these things. It's kind of like a primer phase. Like, yes, we can't hang our hat on resensitization, but we can hang our hat on potentially the benefit of gaining a little bit of strength, potentially the benefit of like not having so much volume going through our joints and ligaments, and training some different kind of muscle groups in different ways, and focusing more on heavier loading and fast twitch muscle fibers. So yeah, I think it's like normally, at least I'm very happy that the way we program is like, yeah, there's anecdotal support, but there's also like theoretical support. And I think when we put everything together, it's like, yeah, what we're doing makes sense. And if you only ever to train like, I don't know, 10 to 20 reps, 10 to 20 sets forever, I think you're missing something there at 2 RAR. Imagine you just did that, because that's like, oh, on paper, that's the best place to always be. It's like, but in the long run, it's probably not. You probably want periodization there.
And once again, also in many, many other ways. And that's why I'm getting more and more away from just like pure scientific evidence or so, right? Because this is what only experience can tell you. It also teaches you how to just like go absolutely beyond your limit, and what I don't want to call it pain and suffering. It is kind of in that situation, but it is a self-induced pain and suffering, actually feels like. And I think that the more often you go through these kind of phases, the more your threshold is being moved upwards, and the more you can endure in the future as well. And the more you learn about yourself, what you're capable of doing, what the limits are, etc., what it feels like to be in go to failure on those higher repetitions maybe. It teaches you so much that in a exercise library, exercise science paper will never be about yourself, things that only you can experience and tell and find out for yourself, these kind of things. And also, when it then comes to just like the overall programming and periodization spectrum, I think it's just, I at least use it to squeeze out everything that we got in that last little bit of the gaining phase. I always put it towards the end of a mastering block, before maybe entering like a primer phase or like a longer active rest period or something like that. And I think that this is the perfect opportunity to really just squeeze out everything, to completely annihilate someone who's just lying on the floor and needs a little bit of time to recover them, because that is the perfect opportunity to do so. Right? I always say, like, if there's ever a time to push, it's now in the metabolite block, especially the last week. Leave nothing on the table, just destroy yourself. Because also this teaches a lot about yourself, because how often do you really get to or go to that place? If you do it in a smart and periodized manner, not that often. And because of this, every now and then, I think it's very, very beneficial in going there. And this is what also a perfect opportunity to do in a metabolite block. So as you can see, from my perspective, there's so much more, or so many more pros to it from a non-exercise science perspective than there are from an exercise science perspective for you.
Yeah, I can only agree. It's the same way I like to use it as well. So, his second question was on processed meats.
Wait a second. Are there any guidelines you're aware of on intake of processed meats? Or is there an upper limit?
So I will say I'm not very well read on this particularly. I generally go for the recommendation of eating minimally processed foods tends to be the way to go, and that tends to be better for people. I know a lot of the processing when it's involving nitrates, so if it's smoked or some of those meats that are heavily processed that are like red meats or like salami, and there's lots of fat and saturated fat involved. I think those sort of things are the ones you want to have less frequently probably within your diet. But for a person who's like otherwise eating plenty of fruit and veg, very active, living a very healthy lifestyle, I don't think you have to be like anal and kind of remove them from your diet. You just wouldn't want to have them as like staples in there. That's as far as I would go, because there's elements of health to a diet that are also psychological. And if you start getting rigid with, I can't have anything processed in my diet, I'm not having any processed meats ever, never having this, or at Christmas time, I'm not having any of those like pigs in blankets because they're going to cause me death or something. It's like, you can take it too far to an extreme where now that's caused a psychological like barrier to health in terms of being flexible with your food. And I think we want to have a inclusive diet, but moderate those sort of foods. So that's as far as I'd go. If I saw a diet that on like every meat was like salami and I don't know, cheese and then smoked salmon, like just rotated through the day, I'd be like, well, you probably want to have a bit less of that. It's probably not great for you. But yeah,
aren't you snacking on salami the entire time?
just salami.
I always have a salami in my pockets wherever I'm going, and it's like so, like I don't know, sitting on the train, and it's just like
nibble the salami.
boring. Let me just pick out my salami and get a bite, and it's just smelly. Everyone is just like, oh, what's this guy doing?
I do like a bit of pepperoni on pizza. If it's good quality, like I say good quality, pepperoni is pepperoni, isn't it? But when you get some from like a proper Italian, like, and I don't know, their pepperoni just seems to be better. It's like, oh, that fat that dribbles over the pizza is very tasty. I don't eat that very often, I'll say that. I normally go for veggie pizzas because...
You're just like standing in front of the window looking inside of the Italian restaurant and be like, oh boy, this
too many nitrates. No.
let me get home now.
Oh dear. Yeah, I don't know if you know more than me on that.
No, not really, to be honest. I think, once again, probably the best bet is moderation is the key here. I would very much assume. And I can't really recall that kind of meme where it's like, in the 90s, they told us fat is fattening. In the 2000s, they said that carbs cause diabetes, or sugar is causing diabetes, and now protein is the devil and is destroying your kidneys. So let's eat nothing at all, basically, right? And it's the same here as well. I think that everything has the possibility of being bad, detrimental, I think. Right?
Dose. Devil is in the dose, is that
absolutely
saying?
I mean, if you want to poison yourself, you can easily just like drink the entire day water, and then you're poisoned and you may die because you drank too much water.
That's what I had when I had my low sodium. That's what it causes, hyponatremia, I think it's called, or something along those lines. So yeah, I was at risk of seizuring and dying due to having such low sodium levels because my body was like waterlogged because it didn't get rid of the water.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, no, but this is a perfect example, right? So people are thinking about stuff like that, processed meats, and I know that, Heidi, you're not talking about just eating meat the entire day, or are you? Carnivore diet. But yeah, I mean, there are some, I think everything. When water can be toxic, I think everything can be detrimental to you. Maybe not toxic, but definitely detrimental overall. But in that regard, the question, I can't really say anything to it. I think I'm having steak quite frequently throughout the week, which is not really processed. It's not smoked. It's not added any kind of salt to it or so. It's just a plain piece of meat.
That's
what
I think more so recommend.
Yeah, but even there, I think it can be detrimental if you are overdoing it. I would think.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting he said this though, because I used to, when I was eating salmon, I'd always just eat smoked salmon. That's all I'd eat. And recently I was like,
it's so good.
It is really good.
It's so good.
But Waitrose also do this, or whatever supermarket they do.
Unsmoked.
They do a poached one. I was like, okay. I'll mix and match because like I don't want to have too much smoked. It might be better for me to moderate that a little bit. So I think, having that in your head of just like, you can moderate those things. It's not terrible. It's not the end of the world. I was very healthy before doing this. I'm never going to be able to see it, but maybe I'll live a day longer or something. I don't know.
If you take that far, you never know what the cow, for example, ingested, maybe, right? Stuff like that. For example, here with tuna, the thing
mercury.
With... Exactly, right? Stuff like that. I mean, if you really want to be on the safe side, then I think that you need to harvest your own stuff.
From a
basically. Farmer. And even then, you don't know whether the I don't know, the ground or the earth that you've used was toxic as well. I don't know.
Cool. I think we've covered. I don't know what the time is actually. Well, I know it's 2.
Yeah, no, it's
3 for you.
Yeah, it's 3 for me. No, it's over 1 hour, so I think that we can leave it here. So, guys, once again, I hope you had a lovely Christmas time, and hopefully that you're getting good and well and recovered and fresh and healthy into the new year. Leave 2020 behind, and let's hope for every one of us that 2021 is just like the quite extreme opposite of 2020, where it's just like flying past us with just going to the other side of the extreme. And 2021 is just like where everyone is getting rich, is getting famous, is having a luxurious life, amazing life. They are able to do whatever they want. I don't know, something like that. That would be amazing, right?
They can come travel, shake our hand, give us a hug.
Yeah.
That'd be good. We'll be getting shredded. That's all I know. That's guaranteed. So
that is guaranteed.
You can be excited to see us probably at some point posting some inappropriate photos, like Mike has been doing recently.
if you ever want to sort out or filter out your friend list over on Facebook, for example, or gets rid of some people who aren't into bodybuilding over on Instagram, just post some shredded half-naked pictures of yours. Yeah. I still do remember the time when Eric Helms did that, and he got very much shit from a lot of people.
Yeah, he had to delete it and then reposted it with like something over the top.
Yeah. I will do that. I will do that for sure. Just to be a little bit provocative of like here, like to the left, there's a walnut, and to the right, it's my glutes. And I'm just like doing a poll of like, which is which, what is the glute and what is the walnut. Yeah. So,
I think everyone's looking forward to that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess nothing else to really say. There's no question this week. There's no picking out the hat this week because we haven't released the other one yet. So that will happen. We will pick it. But I guess, is there any point doing a question this week? I guess not. This should be the week where everyone just gives us a gift.
Exactly. Just enjoy Christmas. Oh, no, you've enjoyed Christmas already. Just enjoy the new year. And then I guess we will be speaking in the next year then.
Speak to you in 2021, guys.
Cheers, guys.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.